When you announce that you're running for office and everybody who you're running against decides to attack you in the first couple of hours of your announcement, whether you agree with this person or not, that is a great position to find yourself in. 6:05, good morning. Great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So yesterday afternoon, the current Kansas insurance commissioner, Vicki Schmidt, announced that she would be running for governor of Kansas as a Republican. And I'm not overly familiar with Vicki Schmidt. I may have met her once or twice, but, you know, insurance commissioner is not exactly the big, sexy job that we track down here on KCMO. And I say that with all due respect. It's just, I mean, in the end, this is the entertainment business, and breaking down I don't even know what with the insurance commissioner is not something that keeps our ratings as high as they are. But she announces she's running for governor, and immediately she gets attacked. And I'm like, that's interesting. Secretary of State Scott Schwab, who is also running for governor as a Republican, put out a statement that said, Kansas Republican gubernatorial candidate Scott Schwab issued the following statement today on Vicki Schmidt entering the primary field. Kansans want a conservative who can win in November, deliver true property tax relief, and help our shrinking rural communities. Jeff Collier, former governor, also running, wrote a statement yesterday saying, welcome to the race, Vicki Schmidt. Never Trumpers deserve a candidate too. And then Dr. Collier wrote, thank you to Kansans for Life for making the record clear. That is because Kansans for Life released a statement on Vicki Schmidt running for governor where they knocked her pro-life record. Joy Eakins put out a statement as well, saying, I'm 100% pro-life. That is a non-negotiable for me. Kansas needs a governor who respects the right to life of every baby, born or unborn. KFL writing here, Vicki Schmidt has the worst record on life of any Republican to ever seek office in Kansas. Now, you know me. I mean, I've got a great relationship with Kansans for Life. I think they do an amazing job, and they're an incredible organization. And I take them at their word, you know, when they put out statements like this, especially as forcefully as they did. But I'll tell you what, there's only one candidate in this race right now who has been attacked at this level within hours of announcing, and that is Vicki Schmidt. So I don't really know what her platform is going to be as a candidate. I have not looked into her background at all on any of this. I'm just once again reading the news and sharing with you what's come out over the last 24 hours on this front. But when you're the candidate who is getting attacked this quickly, this vehemently, and this early, like regardless of whether you like her or not, that's a pretty good spot to start off in, to be totally honest. She got a lot of attention because of how much she got attacked yesterday on this front. And that in and of itself is like, okay, that was the first major wrinkle in this entire Kansas gubernatorial race, where one person got attacked at this level, jumping into the race. Nobody else got slings and arrows like this, not to this level the day that they announced. So Vicki Schmidt put out a video yesterday, and it said this in part.
I've also lowered the cost of doing business by over $75 million to help cut regulatory red tape that drives up the cost for folks like us. Look, I'm not always going to tell you what you want to hear, but I am going to tell you the truth. So yes, I am running for governor of the great state of Kansas because it's time Kansans have a governor that works as hard as they do.
All right, so it's your classic campaign video, right? Share a little bit about your background and say, I'm going to work hard for everyday Kansans. I mean, rinse and repeat. They all do the same thing. Does this sound like, based on what some of her opponents are alleging, the person that I would be running to the polls for? Probably not. But once again, I stay out of these primaries. I have these folks on. I let you decide. And that's what I do. I've never in Kansas or Missouri gotten involved in any of these primaries because my attitude is this. I have 4 hours every day to give an opinion on this show, but I really don't think that you are looking for my primary pick And in the end, to me, I just want to let all these folks come on the show and then let you decide who your preferred candidate is. But based on the accusations out there, would I say this is the person I've been waiting for? No, I wouldn't. But I also can admit that when something good happens for a campaign, well, it's clear as day. And that's what yesterday was for this Vicki Schmidt. Now, who else is in the race? She's not the first female in the race, in case you're wondering. You've got the current Secretary of State, Scott Schwab. You've got former Governor Jeff Collier. You have Joy Eakins. You have Charlotte O'Hara, Stacey Rogers, and Doug Billings. They are all already in the race for Kansas governor. And we still don't know whether or not someone like a Dayton Moore might get into the race. He, of course, told us here on KCMO that he's exploring it. He's interested. We broke that news here on 95.7 FM, a few weeks ago now. So he's still eyeballing it. I know there's a lot of people who are interested in Dayton Moore jumping into the race. And if he does, he will definitely be a force to be reckoned with because he's not going to do it in a way that's sloppy and that he's not given 110%. So that is definitely also just kind of this lingering outlier that could come into the race as an outsider and shake this thing up. Because what you have right now is a list of people who are all basically politicians. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know them all pretty well, fairly well, some better than others, but they're all in that political class. There still is room in this Kansas governor's race for that outsider, for that businessman or woman. And I mean that person that actually is going to fundraise to the tune of millions of dollars. I know some of these folks that I've listed will say they're the outsider, they're the non-establishment candidate. I understand that, and I respect them. But if a guy like Dayton Moore comes in, you know he's going to be backed by a lot of people with a lot of money. And in the end, whether you like it or not, whether you appreciate politics or not, that is still the name of the game. Donald Trump did it back in 2016 with a lot of earned media on a national level, and it is almost impossible to see anybody duplicating that formula again in our lifetimes because of how unique of a situation and a person and an entertainer Donald Trump ultimately is. So you've got to have somebody who's got the dough to be able to go out there and raise the kind of money needed and having the right connections to run a statewide campaign. It's not easy. It can be done, but it's not easy. But you still got to have that money lined up. So when I saw this Vicki Schmidt news, I was like, man, I don't know. I mean, something would tell me that if she's the moderate Republican, the rhino Republican, whatever phrase and name you want to use, even if that's 20%, let's say, of Kansas Republicans, with as big as this field is, I don't know, does 20% win it? And the fact that everyone attacked her on day one tells me that even if they vehemently disagree, and I would say most Kansas conservatives would disagree with some of her voting history based on what KFL and others are saying, that might be enough. I don't know. It's early, man. Kansas, let's go to KCK. That's where Stephen is. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, good morning, Pete. I like the approach of this. I mean, this is how, by not doing this, we elected Laura Kelly twice. We've got to jump on these. We've got to jump on these rhino women or men early and often. Make sure they don't get any traction. They don't get any fundraising. We got to stomp them out. I think Doc Collier has done a fantastic job so far. I'll be supporting our former governor, it looks like, but I don't know if Ty Masterson is going to get in this race. But I think the Republican Party has changed. Donald Trump has changed us. We've got Reagan principles, but we're America first, proactive.
I agree with everything you're saying. I agree with everything. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we got to stop letting. We got to stop laying back up. We get real comfortable in this state because we're real red, and we got to stop laying back at our heels and thinking, well, there's no way rhinos can win in Johnson County. Yes, they can. They can win. They can win, and I love how things seem to be changing. Let me put it this way: they seem to be changing. It may not be that way, but let's hope it does. Let's hope this is a.
But would you admit, though? I mean, listen, I agree with everything you just said, but would you admit too that when you get attacked, like Vicky Schmidt got attacked on day one, that actually is good for your campaign?
Oh, well, I mean. God bless her.
Yeah, that's my only point. I got to run, Stephen. That's my only point. I totally agree with you in terms of the direction that Kansas needs to go, and I'm glad you brought up Ty Masterson, the Senate president, because rumors are he may be jumping in before long as well. I'm not disagreeing with that premise. I'm not saying that this is like the candidate who makes sense for Kansas. I'm just saying from a pure political perspective, you want to be the person that gets attacked the first day of your campaign by all of your opponents. That's just good for you. Left, right, moderate, conservative, liberal, progressive, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying you want to be that person on day one of your campaign. Doesn't mean that's the person that should be the candidate. Doesn't mean that's the nominee. Doesn't mean that's good for Kansas. Doesn't mean any of that. Just purely political. That is a good spot to be on day one. And the bigger the field gets, too, if you are defined in a specific lane within a primary, that does help you to some extent. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, something happened in the Northland. A man tried to assault two young girls. Yet there's a big piece of information about who this man is, his legal status, that has not been reported anywhere in Kansas City media. We will break it for you next on KCMO. Clay County, let's go there, where the sheriff's office reported that Carlos Clamaco Garcia, 26 years old, is in custody on 2 felony child molestation charges after an incident on July 4th. And according to my sources in Clay County, ICE is interested and has asked to take this individual into custody. That's right. So you're hearing this first on KCMO. ICE is looking to take Carlos Clamaco Garcia into custody after, according to court documents, at about 8 p.m. on July 4th, 2 girls under the age of 14 were swimming at the Little Platte Swim Beach in Smithville Lake. I have not been up there, but if you have been up there or if you know anything about the area, please do let us know at 913-408-7957. The girls said that Clamaco Garcia swam up to them and started asking them personal questions they did not want to answer. They tried to move away from him, but they said he groped them and tried to remove their swimsuit bottoms. The girls escaped by kicking Clamaco Garcia in the groin. Then they got out of the water and told their parents what happened. The sheriff's office said it had extra deputies posted at the lake that weekend, so the adults immediately flagged down a nearby deputy. The girls described Clamaco Garcia to the deputies, and they spotted him still getting out of the lake. He was immediately arrested. He is currently in custody on $75,000 bond that prosecutors have asked to be increased. He has a court appearance that is scheduled for today. Now, here's something in the story that I think is worth, touching on and discussing. And this is what was a red flag for me. Only Fox 4 is reporting this. And that is concerning when it comes to your local media coverage. I figured all 3 or all 4 local news outlets on TV would have this. They didn't. Only Fox 4 did. But this was an important line for me as I was reading the story. The girls described the man's appearance, claiming in court records that he had asked them for their phone numbers and that he wanted the girls to come back to Mexico with him.
Bad hombres.
So immediately, like anybody with common sense, your spidey senses go up and you say, okay, is this a dual citizen? Is this somebody who just happens to have family south of the border? Is this somebody who is here illegally? So I reached out to some folks up in Clay County, and I said, hey, what do you know? And as of yesterday, what I had heard from Clay County law enforcement is that this individual was being held on Clay County's charges, but that they were still waiting on a response from an inquiry to ICE. And then as of this morning, I got this at about 5 a.m., ICE has placed a detainer on this individual. So this man, yes, does have a detainer that has been put on him by ICE, Climaco Garcia. Now, that's not a guarantee that he's in the States illegally. That's what it typically means, but it's not a guarantee. And at this time, it is, to be fair, speculation. But ICE has placed a detainer on this individual. We just don't know at this point under what pretense. But you do the math, I'll do the math, and we'll obviously, I think, come to a very similar conclusion together here. That if ICE is interested, that certainly tells you something on who this person is. And God forbid, I mean, this story could have been so much worse up at Smithville Lake. I mean, not only could Carlos Climaco Garcia have, God forbid, done something to these two young girls, as they were trying to escape, what if he panics? What if he panics and he says, oh my goodness, they know what I look like, they know my face, I'm going to get arrested, I'm in major trouble, and you're in the middle of a lake with a grown man as a 13-year-old girl who clearly has more strength, more speed than you, and that could have turned tragic very quickly. Thank goodness these girls did the right thing. They got out of that lake, they kicked him in the groin, they ran to their parents, and the parents got deputies involved, and they arrested this individual. But this had the makings of, God forbid, something tragic happening. And I'm glad, I'm beyond glad. I'm ecstatic that this did not end up being much worse, and now this individual has been arrested. But it's amazing when you look at the way the local news covered this. Woke 41, KMBC, Channel 9, and Channel 5 do not mention, only Fox 4 mentioned that tidbit about these girls saying to authorities that this man said they wanted, or he wanted them to come back to Mexico with him. You would think that would be something that would make the local news. It only made one of your local television broadcast news articles. What does that tell you about your Kansas City media and what it's hiding? 913-408-7957. Speaking of hiding, where is Frank White? We'll get to it next. And here's Frank White. Oh, wait, never mind. Frank will be introduced tonight when the Monarchs take the field. That is the next time we will probably see him anywhere around Kansas City. They are wrapping up a 3-game set tomorrow. They have, or no, tonight. Excuse me, this morning. It's Thursday. I thought it was Wednesday. Yesterday, Mark thought it was Thursday on Wednesday. Today, I think it's Wednesday on Thursday.
No, I had the Wednesday thing going today, too, for a minute, going, oh, yay. It is Thursday.
It is Thursday. So the Sioux City Explorers wrap up their series today at 11:05, and then it's on the road for a week. They got the Winnipeg Goldeyes coming up this weekend, a day off on Monday, and that is followed by the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So if you want to catch Frank White, you got to do it before they hit the road, starting tomorrow night, going up to Winnipeg. So now you've got a lawsuit that has been filed by Jackson County residents. 4 of these residents have filed suit asking a judge to intervene in the election date debate to recall County Executive Frank White. So the county legislature set the date for Tuesday, August 26th, because they're reading county charter that says, hey, when the recall votes are there, you've got 60 days, 60 days, to get something on the ballot to hold a recall election. Well, Frank White is trying to find a way out. He is right now exploring legal options to figure out whether or not he can veto this. Now, he can veto an ordinance. He cannot veto a resolution. the legislature passed an ordinance and a resolution, as you heard from Sean Smith this week, to try to basically CYA, cover their butts, and get this thing on the ballot, John.
An ordinance, a resolution, 43,000 signatures, a lawsuit. What would that might tell you something, huh?
Yeah, no, not to Frank.
Dang it, if we'd have just passed that stadium thing.
I know. Here's KCTV5. Phil Lavoda is the attorney who is representing the Jackson County residents in this lawsuit to basically get this thing done and get it to a vote by August 26th.
Attorney Phil Lavoda is handling the case. His background is extensive in Jackson County, at one point working in the prosecutor's office. He says the county charter is clear.
When they turned in those 43,000 signatures verified, it should immediately go to the election boards and they should schedule the election date within 60 days. The charter, the law, says it shall be within 60 days.
But that's not what is happening right now. The legislature is waiting for White's decision on the ordinance for a special election. Lavoda says the legislature, election board, and county attorney all have an opinion on how this works, but he believes they aren't right.
We're asking the court for an expedited hearing to finally get everybody in the room that has these legal disputes and represent the citizen.
Well, good for Phil Lavoda. The residents who filed this lawsuit, I completely support in putting pressure on the Frank White administration and also putting pressure on the Jackson County and Kansas City election boards. Because we're sitting here right now with the legislature having given a date. But we're still waiting for that all to become official courtesy of the election board. A spokesperson for the office said here, quote, there are lots of legal arguments being talked about regarding the recall election process of the Jackson County executive. But no one is representing the citizens of Jackson County. We are only here because concerned citizens acted to do so much to create the process for a recall election. That is exactly right. And you would think that they would at least respect the people enough to say, fine, you got what you wanted. You got your recall election. Now, if I'm Frank White, I'm going to try to beat it. But it looks like instead, Frank is trying to find a way to slither his way out of this thing and use his office and use his attorneys to figure out a way around it. You would think that if he was so confident in where he's at on the issues, and if he was so confident that this was really just about the stadium vote, which he said again in a statement yesterday, he released a note here saying, let's be honest, this recall is not about what's best for Jackson County. It's about politics, personal power grabs, wasted taxpayer dollars, and most of all, stadium subsidies. If Frank truly believed that, then he would have no problem going to the ballot box on August 26th and beating this recall. And he would be a hero if he beat the recall. I mean, not in the eyes of many, but certainly he would look like he would get the last laugh. Frank White would be able to get up and say, I told you guys, this county's got my back. This was a bunch of loud, angry people who are in the minority. The folks of this county support me, and I'm going to keep doing my job. It would be the greatest victory lap in his political career to beat back this recall election. And if he was that confident in what the recall was actually about, in it not being about property taxes, which I believe it was about, and not being about just pure government incompetency, and if it was really about stadium subsidies, he should be ready for August 26th. Instead, he's trying to dodge it. His actions, as cliche as it is, are speaking much louder than his words here. His words ring very hollow. He's saying one thing, but what he's doing is completely different. And that's why I don't believe it. I don't believe that he believes what he's putting out to the media. Because if he believed it, well, you know and I know, he'd be totally fine going to the ballot on August 26th and seeing how it played out. But he doesn't want to do it. He's trying to figure out a way to not do it. And that in and of itself is completely unfair to every Jackson County resident, even those that want to vote to keep Frank White in office. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us here on KCMO Talk Radio. I think what Frank is doing, by the way, if you're a Jackson County resident, you can tell me otherwise. But you went from people who are ready to run to the polls to recall Frank White to people who are now going to be ready to run over hot coals to run to the polls to recall Frank White. You are drumming up the enthusiasm on the other side, which in politics, in what'll be a special election, you don't really want to do. These things are oftentimes about turnout, oftentimes about who is most motivated. Look at that New York City mayoral election a couple of weeks back in the Democrat primary. The socialist Mamdani wins. Why? Because he's got all the energy. I mean, yeah, people who were more moderate preferred Andrew Cuomo, but nobody was like, I'm a diehard Cuomo guy. Same thing with Trump. It's the exact same thing as Trump back in 2016. You had diehard Trump MAGA people in that primary, and then you had a lot of other voters who were like, yeah, don't really love Trump. I kind of prefer this guy, kind of prefer that guy, this gal, that gal. But Trump had all the energy. He had the enthusiasm. His voters would run over those hot coals and vote for him. Still would, by the way. Frank's doing that on the opposite side. He's making sure that those who want him out the most are going to do whatever they can to cast their vote to remove Frank White from office. And that is not the place that you want to be politically, and he's only digging his hole even deeper. Little did I know Bill was going to talk about it in his morning update, and that is Jeffrey Epstein. So Bill stole my thunder on Bill. Is that the best way to put it? Good morning. It's 7:23. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Thursday. So Bill shared that last night on News Nation. I watched him on Chris Cuomo's show, and he was making the same point he just made there on the morning update. And that is that basically if every person that had some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein, and like we know President Trump did have contact with Jeffrey Epstein. The difference is Trump's in a position where he can obviously defend himself. There will be a lot of people whose names will just be associated with this guy, and it may be entirely platonic. It may have nothing to do with the disgusting, vile, evil things that Jeffrey Epstein was a part of, but that will destroy the credibility of these people. So O'Reilly, as you just heard, said that he told the president back in March, you got to be careful with how you release this stuff. And that's good advice. It's fair advice. So why then did the DOJ just completely throw their hands up and say, well, there's nothing else here? That is a very fair thing to be skeptical of. As much as I talked about this yesterday and I said, to me, the Epstein thing is not a top 10 reason for why Trump will succeed or fail as president. It does stink. It is still fishy. I don't deny that for a second. But it's not going to be one of the reasons that we look back on Donald Trump and say, great president or came up short of expectations. It won't be defined by Jeffrey Epstein. I promise you it won't be. And Chris Cuomo actually made a good counterpoint to Bill O'Reilly on this last night on his show. And I'm telling you, this guy is shedding the Fredo moniker real fast. I don't know if he's at Sonny's level yet, but he's making some decent points here since he got off of that CNN crazy train.
I don't believe there is a client list. I think Bondi made a mistake when she suggested they had a client list. I don't think Epstein had anything like that. I think they have videos where he is doing disgusting things with people, but they're none of the people that people are headhunting for. And the other point is something that people will never give the president credit for, maybe me among them. But there is no client list. And if you put people's names out, they are going to sue the government and they are going to win, because they are going to show that the government had reason to know that there was nothing felonious in their relationship with Epstein. And they put out information that was defamatory anyway. And that's the reason not to do it. You're going to ruin people's lives who had nothing to do with the behavior. Well, but when people hear it, it sounds like a cover.
I hadn't thought about that, the angle that Cuomo just brought up. If they just say, hey, here's the list of everyone ever who's interacted with Epstein, here's the full list. And people are like, well, hold on a second. If I bumped into the guy at a cocktail party, it doesn't mean I knew anything or had anything to do with what he was doing, what he was running, and the evil things he was a part of, right? And that's a very fair point to bring up if you're one of those people. So then what do you do with that information? My hunch on what is going on here, and just my gut tells me that part of what the current FBI may be doing is trying to get more information on what the previous FBI leadership was doing as it relates to this investigation. And that would be a next logical step here to say, what did the guys who used to be in charge do with all this stuff? Now, of course, it happened in 19, right? So Trump was still in the White House then. But then for the last 4 years as well, what did those guys do with this stuff? What information did they have? Is there something they could have released that they chose not to release around the Jeffrey Epstein files? That's what I would be wondering today. But my goodness, I mean, I don't care who it is, whether it's Alex Jones. I mean,
I'm getting pissed now.
There's a lot of people, Candace Owens.
Duh.
They're all like, well, this is all Trump's fault. Trump's part of the cover-up now. It's like, just goodness gracious, pump the brakes for a second, would you? And, of course, what's their other tie-in? Trump's in on it, and it's all tying back to Israel. We can blame the Israelis and blame the Jews. That's their big new talking point as well. And that's just because, well, that's the conclusion that those people want to come to. This stood out to me yesterday. If you're the person getting attacked by all of your opponents, you're in a good spot. Whether you like the person or not, whether you think that their campaign is a noble one or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm not even commenting on that right now. There's plenty of time for that. But yesterday in Kansas, Insurance Commissioner Vicki Schmidt made it official. She announced she was running for governor in the 2026 election.
I've also lowered the cost of doing business by over $75 million to help cut regulatory red tape that drives up the cost for folks like us. Look, I'm not always going to tell you what you want to hear, but I am going to tell you the truth. So yes, I am running for governor of the great state of Kansas because it's time Kansans have a governor that works as hard as they do.
Now, I don't really know much about her voting history. I guess she was in the legislature before becoming the insurance commissioner. But you had, after the announcement yesterday, Kansans for Life, who I have done a lot of work with, love, respect. They do outstanding work here for the state of Kansas and the pro-life movement, put out a statement on Vicki Schmidt seeking the Republican nomination for governor, saying that she has the worst record on life of any Republican to ever seek office in Kansas. And Kansans for Life PAC will not allow Commissioner Schmidt to hide from her record, nor should primary voters let her slip through what could be a crowded field. Okay, I respect that. And if that's their belief, then hopefully that doesn't happen. You then had Jeff Collier, the former governor, who's also running, saying, welcome to the race, Vicki Schmidt. Never Trumpers deserve a candidate too. Thank you, Kansans for Life, for making the record clear. Scott Schwab, the Secretary of State, also running for governor, saying Kansans want a conservative who can win in November, deliver true property tax relief, and help our shrinking rural communities. Okay, good point. I agree. But nobody has gotten more attacks on their first day running for office than Vicki Schmidt has in this Kansas governor's race. And whether you like her platform or not, whether you think she's a good candidate or not, I'm not commenting on that right now. I'm simply saying that is a good place to be as a candidate when you enter the race and everybody has an opinion and everybody attacks you. That didn't happen to the other candidates. There might have been a statement here or there where, someone says, I'm more conservative than the new guy who's jumped into the race. That's kind of par for the course. But, everybody, like in unison, came after Vicki Schmidt. And I'm not sitting here defending her votes. I'm not defending her track record. I don't really know anything about it, to be totally honest. I'm just saying from a pure political standpoint, that is a good place to be your first day in a race. And if we're going to have a Kansas gubernatorial race that is going to be 7, 8, 9 deep, and you got everybody except for Vicki Schmidt saying, I'm more conservative than the next guy, and Vicki Schmidt kind of runs this more moderate, rhino, whatever phrase you want to use, campaign, well, guess what? That's a lane that actually can peel off 20, maybe 25% of the primary vote and can win you a primary. If we're going to have a 7, 8, 9, 10-person primary, all you got to do is get 20, 25%. Now, of course, if Trump makes an endorsement in this thing, it's game, set, match. We all understand that as well. But either way, it's like it actually shapes up well. So what I would do here, if I was KFL and they feel very strongly about this, is they've got to use some of their muscle behind the scenes to make sure that the field is not as crowded as it is likely going to be. I mean, they make the statement here, and they're fair and right probably to make the statement. Kansans for Life PAC will not allow Commissioner Schmidt to hide from her record, nor should primary voters let her slip through what could be a crowded field. Well, yeah, okay, so who's going to do what when it comes to having a very crowded field? Because there's nothing to suggest that any of these people running right now are going to be dropping out. And you've got Collier, you've got Schwab, you have Joy Eakin, Charlotte O'Hara, Stacey Rogers. I would venture we'll have Ty Masterson, the Senate president, at some point. You could have Dayton Moore out there. There still is a lane for a non-politician to get into this race. A business person, a leader. Like that's the lane that Dayton Moore would run in if he jumps into this race. And that lane, I believe, ultimately is going to be filled by somebody. It always seems like it is in Republican politics. So you've got a really crowded field. And the way that it rolled out yesterday for Vicki Schmidt was actually good for her campaign, whether she's a good candidate or not. Now, yesterday, speaking of our national politics, did you hear what President Trump said? Oh, this was just gold. This was gold. So the president of the United States, as only he can do, is having a conversation with the Liberian president. And the president comes away very impressed with the Liberian president's English. We then find out that English is the official language of Liberia. And here's how that exchange went.
Thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well.
Oh, that's great. Now, listen, did I know that Liberia was founded in 1822 by freed American slaves with the goal of resettling free black people in Africa? No, I did not know that, okay? I stumbled upon this TV series with my kids over the holiday weekend called Liberty's Kids, and they're still into it. It's on YouTube. It's free. The kids love it. It's on the American history, going back pre-Revolutionary War. There's a bunch of episodes. They got some big names in there. The late Walter Cronkite is Benjamin Franklin. Liam Neeson's in it. I mean, there's a lot of big names. It was done by PBS back in the early 2000s. It's not woke. It's nothing like that. It's just a good series on American history. And I'm relearning things that I forgot the details on. Bunker Hill, Valley Forge. I mean, all this stuff that they go through in this TV show. So am I going to sit here and tell you today that I knew English was the official language of Liberia? No, I'm not afraid to admit it. Now, maybe you say Trump should know that. Okay? Maybe what I would say is maybe someone on his team should have alerted him of that. Trump's not there because we all expect him to know that Liberians speak English. That's not why Trump is there, John. It's not why he won an election. It's a hysterical moment But this notion that, we finally got him. I mean, just come on with that, please.
He's not wrong that Liberians speak better English than Americans, so, right?
Yeah, that's true as well. That's very true.
Yep.
So, and I know some of you are on the text line saying, well, if this was Biden, no, here's the difference. If this was Biden with the Liberian president, he would have been like, how about you rub my hairy legs there, boy? And then he would have been like, which way do I walk? And then he would have tripped over himself. Like, that's very different from Trump saying, oh, it's such beautiful English. Oh, man, I don't have people here that speak English this well. Oh, just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Without even, being aware that this guy literally speaks English because that's the language of his country. That is very different, but it's also hilarious. We can have a good laugh at it, right?
Absolutely.